is 9/11 Freefall.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of 9/11 Freefall. I'm the host, Andy Steele. Guests tonight are Pamela Senzee and Dave Meiswinkle. They're back to give us an update on their trek for 9/11 truth, tell us some of the interesting stories that they've acquired on that journey, some interesting people that they've met. I'll be playing that in the last half hour or so. I'm going to start with this, and it's been a few weeks old, and I have not covered it yet, and I almost did not cover it because I was wondering if it's even related to our issue, but since it involves NIST, the agency that we butt heads with so often in trying to get a new investigation into the scientific evidence of controlled demolition at the World Trade Center on 9/11, I feel it's worth a mention. The article I'm about to read is from Chemistry World. It says, U.S. government science institutes one-time police chief linked to campus meth lab. All right, and this is related to a few weeks ago. There was an article going around saying that a meth lab had exploded at NIST. I mean, talk about a Kurt Vonnegut-like twist in the story. This article starts off, when an explosion rocked a laboratory in the Special Projects Building of the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology campus in Maryland on July 18th, news spread quickly that the incident was connected to a secret methamphetamine lab. Suspicion soon fell on a member of NIST security force who was injured in the explosion and who resigned the next day. It has now emerged during a congressional briefing that this individual had at one point been the agency's acting police chief, according to NIST Director Willie May. News reports indicated that pseudoephedrine, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and drain cleaner were found in the building along with a recipe to make methamphetamine. The lab where the methamphetamine was synthesized was in an isolated part of the facility and had been used for combustion research in the past. The suspect, who received non-life-threatening injuries, was not named at the briefing, and no charges have been filed. After news broke of the explosion at NIST, the chairman of the Science Committee, Republican Congressman Lamar Smith, immediately raised concerns over how a meth lab was apparently built in a government research facility and requested the briefing from NIST. I'm wondering about that myself. As the Science Committee continues its probe of the troubling incident, it will examine the system of background checks that the NIST uses to make hiring decisions for its police officers, according to the staffer. The committee will also seek additional information such as electronic lock records that could help track the former police officer's whereabouts in recent months while on patrol at the NIST facility, he adds. Last week, news broke that an explosion at a federal research facility was caused by a secret meth lab, Smith said. Now we learn that these weren't the actions of some low-ranking employee, but the former acting chief of police in charge of NIST security, he added. Even Hollywood couldn't have imagined this plot twist, Smith added. As the Science Committee expands its investigation, it is becoming clear we must better monitor those with access to our nation's high-tech research facilities. Do you think? And look, folks, I don't really care that there was a meth lab operating at NIST. I'm glad that whoever was operating it was caught. I'm glad that our tax dollars are not going towards funding such a thing. But I'm illustrating this, not only just because it involves NIST, but to show you that this was happening right under a government agency's nose. So if this can happen, what else can happen? What else can a government agency not take note of? What other kind of high-ranking officials might decide to commit a crime and get away with it, even using government resources to do so? And you see, you talk about 9/11. You talk about scientific evidence proving controlled demolition. People in our government don't want to hear about this. It's an instant non-starter. I don't even believe they really think that it's impossible. They just don't want to deal with it. And they propose this idea that it's completely out of this world to imagine that a few bad apples within our government agencies might perpetuate a cover-up of this evidence for whatever reason. That a few bad apples within our government agencies might even, cause it to happen. And again, that's not reflective of America. America is a government. It's an organization. It's a group of people. All right? The majority of people in any place are never all bad. But just as we've got a crime going on here, and you might consider it a small-time crime. I mean, there's meth labs operating all over the United States. Where I had lived in New York last year, they busted one right down the street from me. Nobody would have suspected that it would have been there in that area where it was, but there it was. And here's one at NIST. Nobody would have suspected that someone would have the guts to operate one out of a federal facility. Obviously, NIST had some goodies there that somebody could not refuse. Somebody could not pass up the opportunity to take advantage. And so if that's happening on a small scale, what's happening on a big scale? I mean, how much are we going to limit our scope here? Do we have to wait for something to explode in a government facility before we look into it? Well, I got news for you, government. Something has exploded. The Twin Towers. And the evidence shows that the airplane impacts did not cause those to come down. They were built to withstand it. Building 7, 47-story steel frame high-rise, does not just collapse in 7 seconds because of random office fires, because of a single column failure. It doesn't happen unless you have pre-placed explosives. So we can keep on ignoring this. We can only focus on the people within our government who commit crimes when they get caught red-handed. I guess in this case they were sort of red-handed because they were burned up his hands and arms. All right, but is this the only time we're going to deal with things? Because something will explode next time. The more we ignore this 9/11 controlled demolition evidence, something's going to explode, whether literally or metaphorically. Because you let people get away with one thing, they're going to get away with another, and it's probably going to be even worse next time. So I want this to stand as an example of what can go on under a government's nose. And it's not to say that the government is more fallible than any organization at all. Any organization can have this kind of stuff go on. Any organization can have bad apples take advantage. So why don't we acknowledge that and face it as a country? Because as the Good for America pamphlets state, acknowledging this would help us overcome the troubles that we're facing right now and be the country we've always pretended to be. All right, I'm going to move on to some other news. I just want to make a mention of this. This is up at ae911truth.org right now. 911 Truth Truck turns heads as it rolls down Canada's highways. It says, have you seen the 911 Truth Truck rolling down the highway in Canada yet? On June 15th, the truck's drivers, Sean Wyden and David Harnden, set off from Vancouver on a month-long tour of Canada. In each of the 14 cities on the truck's itinerary, including Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto, and Ottawa, local 911 Truth volunteers have been eagerly awaiting its arrival. They haven't been disappointed. The two Truth truckers have warmly engaged passers-by in conversation and enthusiastically educated them about 9/11. The idea for Canada 9/11 Truth Truck was conceived in a light bulb moment by a Vancouver businessman who first heard about the 9/11 controversy a mere 2 years earlier and quickly became one of the movement's dedicated advocates. And folks, this is exactly what I talk about all the time. Why we need to use our talents, use our brains in any way we can to make things happen, even if it's simple. Even if it's something that's not going to get a resolution passed by any major organization, even if it's something that is not going to cause the government to pause or pass a law, even if it's something that just brings attention to some regular citizens, at least it's something. All right? Just like we talked about last time, Pam and Dave Meiswinkle were on this show. Every great idea begins as a thought. But we need to change the way that we vocalize our thoughts. Instead of saying, wouldn't it be great if somebody did this, we should be asking ourselves, how can I make this particular thing happen? What resources do I have? And you don't need to have $1 million to make something happen, folks. I mean, if you put your mind to something, you can usually figure out how to do it at a bare minimum of expense. The article goes on. This unnamed Edison tells the story of his awakening to 9/11 truth. One day in 2012, he was scrolling randomly through YouTube videos. Suddenly, up popped the recognizable face of Hollywood actor Ed Asner, who was introducing Solving the Mystery of World Trade Center Building 7, a documentary produced in 2011 by architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. His interest piqued by Asner's narration as well as by the credible comments about Building 7's destruction made by the architects and engineers featured in the film. This businessman headed straight down the rabbit hole, quote unquote. And then it goes on. It's not far-fetched to say that the out-of-the-box businessman felt like he was joining Alice in her unconventional adventure in Wonderland. Nor is it a stretch to add that he finally understood the meaning of Galileo's maxim, all truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. So having been inspired by the Asner film and motivated by his ensuing discoveries, the businessman was supercharged by the time he happened upon Rethink 9/11 Canada in early 2014. Energized by that team's activism, he bought a retired UPS delivery truck and converted it into a moving theater. On both sides of the truck, he mounted flat-screen TV monitors that simultaneously play looping 9/11 Truth videos. He made sure that the stereo speakers on each side allowed anyone viewing the videos to hear the 9/11 Truth message loud and clear. And he literally blanketed the truck's entire body with eye-catching 9/11-related photos and text. You know, folks, I'd love to see this out in front of the Congressional Building, out in front of NIST, out in front of major places, important places, sort of as a protest. Now, this guy is in Canada. I don't know if he'd be able to get the 9/11 Truth truck across the border. They've gotten a little bit more strict over the years. But it would be interesting. Maybe we need a few more 9/11 Truth trucks. The guy's given us the formula for doing it. Article goes on, just as he envisioned, the van has been veritably transformed into a vehicle that delivers the truth directly to the masses. Before embarking on this summer's travels, the truth truck spent a full year roaming the streets of Vancouver 5 days a week. In that time, it parked at all of the city's landmarks where curious tourists congregated and asked questions. The public's receptivity to the truck mirrors the reaction that the same activists see when they do individual outreach on foot. With or without the truck in tow, they observe the people who are ready to accept the truth of 9/11 look as if they've just been splashed in the face with cold water and are suddenly wide awake. You know, folks, in my experience, I find that a lot of people have already heard of this. They're already awake to it. They've already had the wake-up call. They've already had the water splashed in their face. They're just going now for that third cup of coffee. All right. Yeah, you'll hear me tell the story in tonight's interview, but I was just at a classy little bar talking with someone casually about some 9/11 related business, and someone overheard me, and they were excited. They said, "Oh my God, I've heard of all this stuff. Jet fuel doesn't melt steel. We did high fives all around. I had new friends." All right. It's very rare, me personally, that I run into anybody that has not heard of this and doesn't generally agree, even if they're not as passionate about it as I and other people I know are. As one activist put it, going back to the article, the ripple effect of the truth truck is significant. Its unique look and important message makes a lasting impression, even if it receives only a fleeting glance from drivers and other occupants of the thousands of vehicles sharing the roads with it. One fact that Canadians and Americans alike are coming to grips with, and that helps them relate to the truth truck, is that the events of 9/11 have been an impetus for almost 15 years of wars, notes Rethink 9/11 Canada co-founder James McDonald. Millions of people have been killed, tens of millions have been displaced, and billions have been caught in a massive game of fear and distraction. And that's not to mention the trillions of dollars spent by governments bent on keeping their official narratives and agendas pointed down the road to destruction. And I want the audience to remember that the next time you hear someone saying, "Oh, 9/11 was 15 years ago. Why should we care about 9/11? So much is going on now." Well, what do you think it spins off from? What do you think 9/11 sits as the bullseye event in the middle of? All right, it all goes back to 9/11. I mean, 95% of the things bugging us right now as a country, things that people cite as the ruination of America, can go back to 9/11. It uses 9/11 as the justification. So you focus on 9/11. You wake people up to 9/11. You pull the rug out from under it. You spray paint the words "Remember Building 7" all over the agendas and the messages of the so-called leaders right now. I mean, good God, we've got a presidential election going on where the two frontrunners, and anybody who else who considers himself a frontrunner, are deathly afraid of the people they're going to be representing. I mean, you try to go to a speech by one of these people. I remember trying to go see Hillary Clinton a couple of years ago. I mean, all the questions were pre-selected from, beforehand, like a week before, and they weren't even asked by the people who had written them. All right, they were asked by a host. You might as well just turn on Oprah Winfrey when you go home. It's ridiculous, okay? And so I don't see a good path ahead for a country in which the people who claim to want to represent the people are hiding from the people. That never ends well. But you expose 9/11, it takes the power from these people. I saw a cartoon. I actually posted it because I facilitate a lot of calls for AE 9/11 Truth. I posted it in a team reminder email, and it shows a politician speaking at a podium and he's at the end of a plank. The plank is sticking out from a cliff. He's at the very end of it with his podium, and there's people standing on the other end, essentially keeping him alive by congregating on the other end, being that weight that holds him there. And it shows one person turning around and walking away. Everyone else is still listening to him, and the caption says, "People don't realize the power that they have," implying that everybody could just turn away and walk away, and this politician would go falling into the big void waiting for him at the bottom of the cliff. All right, that is so true. You know, we defer our judgment to authorities too often in this country. We don't rely on our instincts, on that little voice inside of us who says, that building falling down, that doesn't look right. That does look like a controlled demolition. I think I will put my name to this petition. 105 feet of free fall, that's not possible unless you have explosives inside. Yeah, definitely. Where do I sign up? We worry about these people who will continue to lie to us. It's an abusive relationship, so let's get out of it. So I want to commend the guy who created the Truth Truck there in Canada. I want to make sure I talked about this other article, though, so I'm going to jump to it. The article is titled, AE 9/11 Truth Sees AIA Defeat as a First Step, a Learning Experience. And I don't even consider it a defeat. I mean, it's like if you're a prosecuting attorney and you're trying to prosecute a killer who is obviously trying to cover up his crime, and you ask him, did you murder your wife? And he says no, that's not a defeat. He's just lying. And that's really what happened at AIA, is just people got up there and made up a bunch of stuff. Whether intentional or not, whether they just are that ignorant about what happened at the buildings in New York on 9/11, or they just figure they could just go up and lie and everyone would believe them and it would go unchallenged. I don't know, but I don't even consider that a defeat. I mean, yeah, of course, it's going to take some time to get major institutions that have Bill Clinton, of all people, speaking at their conferences. You think there's going to be some politics involved if they've got former presidents speaking at the conference? So it's going to take some time to cut through all of that politics, but it was a great first step and got a lot of exposure for the issue. But this is a great article. It's written by Craig McKee. It says, undeterred by the sound defeat of its Building 7 resolution at the American Institute of Architects annual convention in May, Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth is already considering new ways to approach and educate the AIA's members over the next year. We think there are possibilities, said Ted Walter, AE 9/11 Truth's Director of Strategy and Development. There are ways to restructure the resolution. There are also ways in working with people at the local chapters to come up with more effective strategies for outreach over the next 9 to 12 months. He says it is likely that AIA chapters will be consulted for their input on what type of resolution delegates might be more likely to support. It might make more sense, Walter adds, to have the resolution sponsored by a local chapter or state organization of the AIA rather than by individual team members. Had it passed, the resolution would have resulted in the AIA adopting a position statement in support of a new investigation into the complete collapse of 7 World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. And then it goes on. It's clear that a majority of the people in that room were voting not based on rational examination of what happened to Building 7, but on how they feel and what they want to believe about what happened on September 11th, he observes. They were more concerned with reputation of the AIA and were not willing to commit the AIA to taking a position on anything as controversial as the collapse of Building 7. And that's the situation, folks. Again, nobody does anything they would rather not do unless they are afraid of something else. And I always got to qualify that I'm not talking about violence. I always worry that people are going to jump to that conclusion. No. But pressure, political pressure, making these people irrelevant. That's the best revenge on anybody, is you make them more irrelevant. We talk about this with I talked about it earlier with the politicians, the people running for president. I mean, how much of a joke is it that they're afraid of their own people, that everything is so scripted? All right? The center can't hold like that for much longer. So make them be more phony. This is my opinion. Make them have to work even harder. Make them even more tyrannical. And make them censor even more by not quitting, by keeping on bringing it up. You ever watch an episode of Columbo? He's very friendly as he goes about breaking down the murder suspect, the person who was responsible for the murders in each movie. Very friendly, never goes away. Harps on very specific points that he can prove. Asks him questions about it. He doesn't come out and accuse him right away. I think that's a very good model to follow. I think it should be required viewing for any person in the 9/11 Truth movement. A nice episode of Columbo. And then eventually the suspects end up breaking down. They end up making mistakes. The system is making mistakes because that's just what the nature of what these people do. I mean, that's who they are. Whenever you try to start off something like what we saw on 9/11, a controlled demolition of the towers, and then lie about it and cover up, you're not going to keep that covered up from everybody. I mean, yeah, you might be able to scare people by saying mean things about them. Those people in society that are worried about their reputation and their money, but not everybody is in this society. Some people just don't care. Some people are going to tell the truth no matter what, because it's the right thing to do, and they realize the real secret to life is not impressing everybody. You know, not trying to get on everybody's A-list, but just being on your own A-list, worrying about impressing yourself. You know, that's the real meaning of life, is just, basically keep yourself well fed, keep yourself healthy, and enjoy every single minute of it. If you do something that you feel is fulfilling, enjoy the little things. And see, when you focus on that, it doesn't become as big of a deal to say, hey, that building falling does look kind of funny. I'm going to sign the petition. I don't care what any of you people think. If we could get 300 million people to think like that and get their minds out of wanting to be glamorous and famous or being the top of their field in whatever profession they chose, I think we can make some progress in this country. We can stop being phony, stop trying to dominate everybody else. That's just my opinion. So anyway, we're getting towards our time limit here. I want to play the interview with Pam and Dave Meiswinkle, so you can read that article up at ae911truth.org. Before I do play tonight's interview, we're going to do what we do every week. We're going to take 10 seconds of silence to remember the victims of 9/11 and their families and all the people who died in the wars that followed 9/11. We're going to do that beginning now. And that is 10 seconds. I'm happy to be joined again by Dave Meiswinkle and Pam Senzee. If you folks remember, Dave is the president and founder of New Jersey 9/11 Aware. He's a former police officer and veteran. He's currently a criminal defense attorney. He was also founder of the New Brunswick Reporter. His activism and articles outlining local and municipal corruption brought the federal authorities to New Brunswick, which led to major investigations and the arrest, indictment, and conviction of prominent local political figures. He served as the secretary of the New Jersey Reform Party. He was an independent candidate for governor against Chris Christie in 2009. He ran for a congressional seat against Chris Smith in 2010. And he holds a BA from Rutgers College, an MA from New York University, and a JD from Seton Hall Law School. And Pam is a mural and fine artist. She's an author and adventurer. In 2012, she crossed the United States by bicycle along with another peace activist. And they embarked on this journey on behalf of AE 9/11 Truth. Pam wrote about her experiences, the lessons she learned from it, and insights during that epic adventure. The book is called Quantum Trek, a post-9/11 journey of transformation. Closing in on their goal here, on their journey for truth. They were on the show several weeks ago to talk about that. Now as they're coming close to the end, they'll be talking about what they've experienced, among other things tonight. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Andy. Thank you very much.
Hi, Andy.
Now, briefly remind our audience about this journey for truth, what you guys are doing, what it's all about, and what the purpose is behind it.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a 500-mile walk, and we left south of the Shanksville area to the first entrance that we could get on to the Great Allegheny Passage, which turns into the C&O towpath and follows the Potomac River. And this takes us from the Shanksville area to Washington, D.C., and then we'll go along the towpath, and then we'll go from D.C. to the Pentagon and back through D.C., and then on through our founding fathers' historic roads in Baltimore, in Philadelphia, in Trenton, Princeton, in New Brunswick, in I believe through Newark, where Flight 93 took off, and on into the 9/11 Memorial at the Ground Zero area in New York City, and our trek will close at the 9/11 Survivors Tree. So obviously it's about 9/11 truth. We also have that broader picture of image of transformation, which we want to change this post 9/11 paradigm, and we want to restore our Constitution, hence our walking in our founding fathers' footsteps. So we're making a documentary along the way of that journey, and I'll let David tell you a little bit about some of the adventures that we've had so far, along with countless mosquito bites.
Yes, Andy. The purpose, well, there's a number of purposes. One is we, along with a lot of other people, would like to see a new 9/11 investigation, and we would very concerned with what's happened to the incursions on the Constitution and some of the draconian measures that have come as a result. And on our show, we constantly try to reinforce the need for a new paradigm, a new society, a new model to move towards. So we're hoping in the process of doing this trek and making a film that somehow we can encapsulate all those points I just mentioned and realize them. What we did do is, as Pam said, we were up to Shanksville and in that area where Flight 93 crashed, or where, let's put it this way, where the official story is 93. Something happened with United 93 that came out of Newark. And we got on the Great Allegheny, which is a bike path, and it's also, I believe, a railroad line, because there's railroad tracks up in that area, too. In fact, we camped right next to railroad tracks, and we made our way down from Deal to an area called Frostburg, then down to Cumberland, which is a major center, but it's not like we think it is. It's out in that area. You're lucky, and we have, for the last week, I haven't had any kind of ability to use a cell phone. There's no towers out here, and I have a Verizon, so I can't make connection to people as normally I would. And my computer, I can't hook my computer up and things of that nature. So we made our way down from Cumberland. Eventually, we're in a place called Paw Paw, which is in West Virginia. And now we're down in Hancock, which is in Western Maryland. So we were in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Maryland, that little corner, which is, you wouldn't believe how remote it is, actually. Even in Hancock now, I can't make a cell phone call or a text message with my phone. And we're only now about 124 miles north of Washington. So when we started, we were about 6 miles north of Washington. We've come close to 90 miles since we left. And as Pam said, I mean, I have one arm. It's got at least 20 mosquito bites on it, just the arm. We've got mosquito bites all over the place. We did see a rattlesnake up in the mountains, in the one of the railroad tracks up in the Great Allegheny. When we came down, there's a lot of wildness, and we've been camping out most of the time. So, and we had to lighten our gear. We've had some interesting occasions with our carts, and I'll let Pam describe some of those that adventure, those episodes, and to the third cart we have now that we're pushing all our gear in.
Yeah, I want to hear about this.
Well, we just, I just want to highlight the kindness of the people, as Rita and I experienced on our trek as well. Here we are going across. We have a controversial issue, but as David alluded to, we've had some cart issues, and so we bought these really beautiful carts for that parents use as joggers for their children. Little carts they put their preschoolers in, and a lot of cross-country walkers use those. And we had two very nice ones, and they basically, once we got on the C&O, the C&O towpath is very rough, and so once we got on the C&O, the carts kind of broke down. They couldn't hold up to it. So David went and purchased. He managed to finagle a deal, and he purchased 2 grocery carts. So here we are on the C&O with our 2 grocery carts and all our stuff, and that was really hard because it's such a rough. It's just like taking it over rocks and gravel and tree roots and all sorts of things. And so that was just extremely hard, and we couldn't imagine going to DC that way. It was too arduous. And so we were held up in Paw Paw and trying to downsize and having all this drama. And a guy comes up and became our guardian angel, and he went and got us a cart. And we purchased it through him, but, it was miles away. And he went and got it. He assembled it. He built railing around it, came to our place that we were staying in Paw Paw, and knocked on the door later that night, woke everybody up, and said, I want to, take care of this before I go to work. He's a switchman for the railroad, and just out of the kindness of his heart, did all this for us. And this cart is absolutely perfect, a really industrial strength cart. So just these mundane things that mean so much when you're going on the road like that, but kindness and compassion all the way down the road. We've just had a lot of really, really wonderful people, and a lot of those folks are on film. So we're actually documenting, in a sense, part of this documentary is the voice of the people, and it is the responses of the people, not only to 9/11 and questioning the official account for 9/11, but also about restoring our Constitution and our liberties, and stopping all these wars, stopping this global imperialism, and getting people's views. But we really want to go much deeper, and we have a few surprises for this documentary that are still in the works. We're not gonna reveal that yet, but we have some pretty exciting people that may be included in this documentary that can take it to that other level of changing the paradigm, take it to a level beyond where I think a lot of us are looking collectively. And that's really what we want to do, because we're very, very interested in just how we can change the paradigm in a truly, truly effective and lasting way.
It's amazing how nice people really are, especially when you have issues come up during trips. I've had this myself when I was moving across the country, which I recently did. People are awesome. People are usually willing to help out and step up to the plate, and so you got to remember that too when you encounter people that need your help. I'm saying this to the audience out there, and usually things are going to be okay. And this is how we function in society. This is what has made humans rise up to be the number one species on this planet, is the fact that we all back each other up. So when you guys are traveling and talking to different folks, I assume you're talking to them about 9/11. What have some of those conversations been like?
Well, they've been interesting, Andy. We probably need to have a lot more conversations. What we look at it is this really the beginning of the trek or I don't say our mission, but I think we finally have the right equipment, at least in part, to travel with. As Pam said, that we had two really good carts, and when we got off the Allegheny, the Great Allegheny, that's when they actually came apart, which has surprised me a little bit, because they were pretty good, had pretty good tires on them, but they had some features that weren't strong, especially the handles was plastic. And I remember, ready to leave. We were ready to go on the CNO stands for Chesapeake and Ohio. It's a towpath that was a canal was built, and there was a race at one time for the canals versus the railroads. Anyway, then that's where we changed for the grocery carts, which are pretty heavy in themselves, and we probably, each of us had well over 100 pounds of gear we were pushing, including the carts, and literally pushing the stones. They just with the little tires on those grocery carts are great for concrete or for blacktop or for not for the canal road. So now we have a really good cart that works real well. So with regards to the people we've met, the other day we met some Franciscan people that work for a Franciscan university. It was really good. We had a little discussion. We talked to a police officer about 9/11. In fact, he showed us his son. Wasn't even solicited really. He had on his iPhone pictures of his son who was in the Boy Scouts, and he was showing us the buildings, the two Twin Towers, and things of that nature. We talked to people that just, one guy was walking the whole Appalachian Trail, or at least good parts of it, and his experiences. In part, we're talking about the government and some of the changes since 9/11. We're talking about investigations and things of that nature. Sometimes we don't really get into it too much. It depends on, you have to feel the situation. So our conversations right now, that have been good, but I think they're going to get a lot better as we progress on the trip. And again, we've only done about 90 miles, and we have to really complete it. We're probably close to 500.
Another comment that I wanted to make is that, a lot of the people that we've been talking to me, really reflect a voice of the people. And we have found, overall a receptivity, kind of an understanding. I'm not hearing any sort of shock about questioning 9/11, and a number of people recognize that there are issues, and people who really, you can tell, I really have not ever given it much thought, are saying things like, "Yeah, it really was strange how those buildings came down," or "Yeah, I've always wondered about that," and it never really sat right with me. So it's almost like we are seeing a shift in consciousness. But there was one gentleman that I want to mention that we met along the way, and I won't say his name to protect his anonymity. He didn't want to be filmed. But this was a veteran, an Iraqi war veteran. And he He just traveled. That's all he did. He traveled on foot. He lives in the woods. He lives off the land. He goes around and he gives people what little he has. And so he'll, in other words, if he has a little, a can of tuna, he gives somebody a can of tuna. He's in his little way, giving along the way or uplifting along the way. But he suffers from PTSD, and he won't take medication. And he talked about the men, women, and children that he was ordered to shoot in Iraq. So it destroyed him. His service in the war destroyed him as a person, and psychologically it scarred him. And his way of healing, he doesn't want to take the official, he renounced the war, and he doesn't want to take the official treatment, so to speak. And so this has kind of been his way. He lived as a vagabond, and yet as someone who's going around and trying to uplift, and that's his way of coping. I'm sure it's an extraordinarily, harsh life at times, but this is what we're doing to our veterans. We have all these young people who have been serving in various capacities since 9/11, and I think we know by now that that there's certainly a great deal documented about the questions and the lives involved in these wars. And so, I just wanted to honor this individual. We spent really a couple of hours talking with him at length. And, so that's we really want to include, even though he wouldn't be on film, we want to include some kind of account of that and explore the things that are happening with our veterans. And I think David wants to make a comment here, Andy.
Well, yeah, that one particular guy, he was tuned in. It wasn't like, he was off the grid now, but he could, wire his brother for help if he needed some aid or something, money. And he had a goal. He was going to a certain area, and he thought he had a job lined up and things of that nature. But he was pretty well, aware of. He's talking about Jade Helm and different actions of the government with regards to FEMA and things of that nature. So, he looked at it with an eye that most Americans don't see. Now, some of the people we've spoken with, that's their official story is their reality. So when you talk to them, it's not like, it's like, I believe that, the planes did what they did at the Pentagon, and because these flyers knew how to fly, they were trained, and so the official story. Some people buy the official story, and that's a sort of we're still trying to feel that situation out. How do you approach people? What's the right questions to ask them when you tell them? They'll ask you. They'll be curious. We had, in fact, the guy that helped us with the cart, really given us the idea for the cart we have now, which we think is going to take us all the way. He saw us a couple of days before. He saw us, and advised the cart. We were at a place called Old Town, which there was what we were expecting. Once we got to Old Town, something was going to happen. There was nothing at Old Town. It was just a little area park or whatever. But we did talk to a biker there, who we met again then a couple of days later. This guy was a really sharp guy. He used to work a heavy construction, and some of these guys, they just ride the towpath. They go for long distance and for workouts. And anyway, we were talking to him, and he helped really straighten us out as to the direction we were moving in at that time. And we continued down on this towpath. And then a couple of days later, we ran into the guy that eventually helped us. The strategy, there's a strategy, and I think we'll find and be comfortable with, is how do you really approach people? A lot of them that don't think of this issue anymore, these people are mountain people, they're living in areas that are fairly remote, as I say. We're at Hancock, and, somebody, I remember 70 miles or so ago, so when you get to Hancock, that's where you'll be able to get this stuff. Well, we got to Hancock, and you can't get the stuff that we're looking for. You're not going to get it. It's a big city out here, Hancock, but it's not very big as far as what we're used to. It's in this area. It's big, I guess, but it's not. It's very small. And you walk down the street. I mean, I guess a lot of people know us. We're familiar just walking the street, now, and we can say hello to people. We go into a store and stuff, a thrift store. It's not like they got big franchises out here. They don't have anything. They got dollar stores. They got a drugstore. They got this loaves and fishes place we're at today, which is like a little thrift shop, and little stuff. And so it's really Americana in that regard, but it's not like. I guess what I'm saying is that the right questions or the right format, the right way to approach the people. At least I haven't figured out what's the best way to do it. You just say, we're doing a 9/11 walk for the victims, for their families, for truth, for justice. Why are you doing it? Because of the Constitution. We want to create a new society. And what's the best approach? We're still trying to figure that out.
Well, it's funny you guys are talking about people being open to this. Just this week I was out. It was a very classy little bar, and I was talking to somebody about AE 9/11 Truth related stuff, just casually, and we were walking outside for a moment, and as we passed by this table, someone must have overheard something I said, and they said, 9/11, you know about that? And then they just repeated, like, jet fuel doesn't melt steel, and so we did high fives all around and everything. I said, I'm with that group, and these people already knew about it. They knew about it on their own, just casually heard me as I'm passing, mentioned something about 9/11, obviously hearing me say something sympathetic to 9/11 Truth, and we were instant friends. And those kind of conversations are happening all over America. So many people are awake to this. So many people know what's really going on. They see the elephant in the room, and it baffles me why it's difficult to get people motivated to do things. I mean, we can get some people to get out, but imagine if we got 300 million people to get active. Oh my God, it would be over with tomorrow. I'd have no need to have this show, and I'd be happy about it because we would have succeeded. What do you guys think about empowerment? What do you think Americans are most seeking right now in order to feel empowered and to speak out about issues like this?
Well, that's a big question, Andy. I think in a sense, people are not necessarily feeling empowered. I think they're subconsciously feeling oppressed without knowing, in a sense, that they're oppressed. There's a bit of, not a bit, but I think quite a lot of social engineering, if you will, that's going on in this country. And it happens through the corporate media, which is totally embedded with the military-industrial complex, as you know. And, so what we have are a lot of people who are not, people are trying to live their lives. They may have illness in the family. They may have to work 2 jobs. They're trying to get their children through college. They're going on with, they may be struggling with foreclosure or job layoffs or all sorts of things. And they're going on with their lives. They try to catch some news on television, and on it goes. And so, yes, in one sense, there's an awakening. In another sense, deep down they know that there are things like the Patriot Act going on, that there is massive surveillance, that there is. They may not specifically know about indefinite detention or underreported things like this, but because of Edward Snowden and other things that have come up. Bradley Manning, they have some awareness, and it has a chilling effect. I think a lot of people are sort of like, okay, so I'm not going to make waves, and I think for me that's why I'm very, very geared toward looking at things like quantum physics to change the paradigm. Because I think we're at a place in the time of man and this nation. Our founding fathers became free from oppression through traditional revolutionary means, And I think that we need another revolution, but it has to be not only a peaceful revolution, but in a sense a spiritual revolution or a spiritual battle. And because we have all sorts of religious divisiveness, and we sort of like have our camps of my belief is better than your belief, and that all of that sort of thing. Well, quantum physics is really the great leveler because in a sense it can contain all of those different aspects and yet transcend it at the same time. And it really says that consciousness never dies and that it only transforms, and that we're both the wave and the particle at the same time. So the particle is you, Andy, me, Pam, David, as David, ex-cop, criminal defense attorney. We're these identities, right? But in the wave, we're not. We're all one. We're all this spirit of potential. And I think it's basically what a certain group of quantum physicists are saying is that consciousness comes first. The material world manifests out of consciousness, and not the other way around, which traditional scientists and the mass majority of scientists today are looking at it in that traditional sense. The material came first and consciousness evolved over a long period of millennia. That's not the case. If you listen to Amit Goswami, Dr. Amit Goswami, he'll say things like, no, it's the observation and then everything appears, even the history of that particular manifestation. If we start to apply those kinds of concepts to the big problems of 9/11 and a post-9/11 world, in the most simplistic way, we could say we can change this with our minds. And so breaking through the social engineering, breaking through the sort of the trance of peoples, that are sort of in a social agreement, a peer pressure agreement in a sense of this is the protocol, this is what you do, this is the authority you obey, da 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 da. It's kind of breaking through that consciousness in various ways. I don't know exactly how, but that's kind of the journey that I'm on.
So what are some of the small things here in the last couple of minutes of this show that our listeners can do to bring justice to the 9/11 issue, that within their power, with what they can accomplish with their skills and their resources?
Okay, well, this may sound a little strange, but I believe this. I believe this with all my heart. I'm going to quote Mother Teresa. She used to say, "Small things with great love." Small things with great love. And that's what she did. One person at a time, one instant at a time, one thing at a time. I think we get overwhelmed with it's all so big that I don't matter. And what I do doesn't matter. So in the most simplistic way, what I would say to anyone listening is follow your conscience. Follow what's in your heart to do, and nothing is too big or too small. In the larger sense, there is no big or small. Small, very tiny things have turned the world around, and very big things have gone on with no effect, or in reverse. So whatever you want to do, if you want to go and talk to your congressman about these things, if you want to do an outreach with a YouTube video and get it out to some people, or create an action in your community, or form an AE 9/11 Truth Action group, whatever you want to do. Call radio shows, call your senator, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sign petitions, share that petition. Everything you do, though, do it with heart. Do it with a positive attitude. Do it with a can-do, because if we're going around with doom and gloom, that's what we got. It comes out of our consciousness. So if I'm going on this track the whole way and saying, this sucks, we can't do it, it's the end of the world, we're never going to get over this, what am I doing? We have to do this with an attitude of, yes, we can. We may not see the results as soon as we would like to, but we need to keep moving forward with that positive attitude, because that truly is, in quantum physics, a power. It's a power that brings new reserves, not only of energy, but of manifestation and experience. That's how things change. Okay, so action, but it's got to be coupled with attitude.
I would also say that it's really important to keep an open mind, and that during the times of transition, things will break down in a way that people will have more of an open mind. They will be more ready to make a change. Our attitudes and our positions lots of times lock us in because we're trying to hold on, and sometimes it sort of all melts away. You can't hold on anymore. It becomes more fluid. And that's the time when it can go both ways. The society can be restructured for good or for bad. But as Tama said, to follow your heart in a sense, or your conscience, but to really, try to educate yourself now about what's behind the powers that are behind the different politicians, the Hillary Clinton or whatever, and support interests or forces that are opposed to those powers or different than those powers.
And if people want to donate to Truth Walk 9/11 and help us on our continuing trek and making this documentary, they can contact me directly at PamelaSenzee@gmail.com, PAMELA, S as in Sam, E, N as in Nancy, Z as in Zebra, EE, @gmail.com, and I will send them the mail order address that they can send a check to. We're going to be creating another Indiegogo site for the film, so there'll be other ways to donate, and they can stay in touch on at QMAmedia.com.
All right, we're going to have to end it there because we are out of time. But, guys, good luck. Stay safe, and let me know when you guys have reached the end of your journey. So, Pam and Dave, thanks for coming on 9/11 Freefall.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
This program's on every Thursday night on No Lies Radio at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. You can also download MP3s of this show from the Internet Archive by going to 911freefall.com. This is Andy Steele saying have a great week and good luck.